Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com, and in this tutorial we're going to look at enabling your user to upload files through your web application, which you can then save in the method of your choice. So I'm going to create a new dynamic web project here, and I'm going to select dynamic web module version of 2.5 because I want my mappings in web.xml. And let's call this file uploader and click finish. Now, to enable file uploading, you're going to have a way of saving your files, and that means you need a writable directory on your server, which you may not have if you're using some kind of free account. And you may want to try saving files as binary objects in a MySQL database. And I won't cover that in this tutorial, but the bottom line is you've got to have some directory somewhere or some means of saving your file if you want the user to be able to upload files, at the risk of stating the obvious. And if you try saving a file, for example, in one of these project directories, that's a terrible idea. Firstly, because when you deploy your project, you'll probably zip this up as a WAR file, and then for example, your web content, it will no longer be accessible on the target server. And secondly, because even when you run stuff in Eclipse, if you try to save, if a running project saves something in one of its own directories, the results can be pretty unpredictable and strange, and you don't want to do that. So that's the bottom line. Make sure you've got somewhere to save your file on your server, whether it's in a MySQL database or whatever it is. Okay, and having covered that, let's go ahead and create a project that allows the uploading of files. So I'll start by right-clicking here, and I'll create a new JSP file, and I'll call this JSP file upload.jsp. And to enable the user to upload a file, we need a form, and the method is going to have to be set to post because we're not going to send this data in the URL. And we need to say like action as usual, and I'll set the action to uploader, and this is going to be a servlet, which I'm going to define in a minute. In fact, let's put the context path in there as well. So I'm going to say in here page context dot request dot context path, and we'll have the context path / uploader. This is going to be the URL to my servlet. And an extra thing that we need to specify here is enc type, encoding type, because usually forms encode their data in a sort of textual kind of way, but we want to say that we're sending binary data, and to do that we have to set the enc type attribute encoding type to multipart / form-data. And that will enable the form to upload binary stuff. So I'll put the closing form tag in here, and now we're going to need a submit button as usual. So I'll say here input type equals submit, and for the text on this submit button I'm going to say something like start upload or upload now or something like that. And I need the E of value in there. There we go. And now I'm going to use a control that will allow the user to upload files, and that's going to be another input. So input, and I'm going to set the type equal to file. So input type equals file. And I don't think I really need to set the name of this, but I'll set the name to file anyway to be on the safe side. And I'll say value equals select, something like select, and let's imagine, so this could allow the user to upload absolutely anything, but let's say that we want them to select images, for example, upload images. I could say here select image, and we could restrict the format in our servlet if we want, but I'll just say here select image, that will do. And let's close this tag. Now let's take a look at what this actually looks like. So if I select the JSP file here, upload.jsp in web content, and click run, then we're going to see just a little form, and it looks like this. So there's my submit button, and this text field and the browse button together are my file input control. So if I click browse and select, for example, an image, then it fills the kind of path into this text box. And if I click upload, we'll get an error at the moment because I haven't defined the servlet that the form action goes to at the moment. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll close this window, and so the action of my form is set to context path /uploader. I'm going to right click my project and create a new servlet here, and I'll put it in a package called demo, let's say, for the moment, and I'll give it a class name of uploader, and the class name should have a capital letter, as with all class names, and I'll click finish. But since I want the action of the form to be with a lowercase u, because I just feel that kind of looks neater somehow in a URL, I'm going to go to my webinf, web.xml, and find the servlet mapping, and I'm going to change the URL pattern here to uploader with a lowercase u, and I'll save that. And let's go to my servlet now in the Java source, and let's just check that this works. So we need to implement the doPost method now, because this is going to receive the post data from my form. So I'll say print writer out, and I'm just going to create a really rough demo here, and I'm going to leave it to you to integrate this in a sensible way into your project. But let's just get this working and saving uploaded files. So we need to say request.getWriter, request.writer, print writer. I seem to have forgotten. Oh, response, that's why. Response.getWriter. There we go. And I'll add the import for print writer there. And for the moment, let's just say out.println hello. And I'll just test that by running this. Say run on server. I want to save everything. And if I go to the uploader URL now, we should see that servlet. So here's the context path file uploader and uploader. And yeah, we're not going to see anything actually because this is going to invoke the doGet method. But if I go maybe to my upload.jsp, let's try that, upload.jsp, and click browse and select something and start upload. Now we go to the post method of the servlet, so everything's working. Now in the servlet, we can get the stuff that the user uploads and write it to a disk file, for example, or as I say, you could put it in a database instead if you want. And the first thing to check is let's do a check here and see if we've actually got any binary form data. So I'm going to say here servlet file upload dot is multipart content, and I'm going to pass in a request object, and I want to say if not servlet file upload dot is multipart content, and then let's output a message just to keep this really simple here, saying print ln nothing uploaded, and if nothing's uploaded we'll just return from the servlet there. Now if we're down here, we'll assume that something has been uploaded, and I'm going to create a servlet file upload object. Let's call this upload and set that equal to a new servlet file upload. Now if you look at the constructors of that, it has a constructor which takes the file item factory. So we're going to define one of those, file item factory. And this is an object that lets you save the stuff that's uploaded really easily actually, just with kind of one line. So let's say file item factory equals new disk file item factory, disk file item factory, there we go. And I won't use this fancier constructor at a moment, I'll just use the plain one, and we'll add the import for that. And that looks good. And now what I can do is I can say upload dot parse request and pass in a request, and this is going to return me a list. Well, let's have a look here. It throws an exception which I'm just going to handle with a try catch, and this method's going to return a list of file item objects. So let's say here list file item items equals, and behind the scenes this is going to use this disk file item factory, meaning these items will enable me to write my content to disk very easily. And I'm going to, let's output a message here and say out.println. So if there's a file upload exception, let's say upload failed, we're not sure why, but it failed. Okay, and I'll just put a return in there as well. Now we can loop through these items, so I can say for file item in item, file item in items, and for each item there's various things we can do now depending on exactly what you want to do. And one interesting thing is, if we look at the methods on item, you might want to say get content type, because then you can see what kind of thing has been uploaded, and that actually returns a string. So let's say string content type equals, and for the moment let's just say out.println content type. So let's have a look at what comes back, and let's now run this application. So I'll select my upload.jsp and click the run button here, and you can set an attribute on your upload input control here to let it upload multiple files at the same time. I'm just going to demonstrate the single kind of version here. So I'll click browse, and let's say to a PNG. It could be a zip file or it could be anything, and I click start upload, and here we've got a rather nasty problem. So let's take a look what happened. If I go to my servlet uploader.java line 54, and I'm not completely sure what I did wrong here. Oh yeah, I actually forgot to supply the item factory to the constructor of servlet file upload. So yeah, we have to tell it to use this item factory before we can get our items back. So let's run this again. I'll save that, click run again, and we'll try again, second time lucky. And I click browse, and I select something that was actually a PNG file, and click start upload, and here we've got the content type of image.png. So one possibility is, let's just quit some of these files, is that I could say something like if content type dot equals image.png, or if not content type dot equals image.png, then whoops, let's put this bracket in the right place here. Then we could say something like out.println only PNG format is supported, only PNG image files are supported, let's say PNG format image files, you get the idea. And then I'll just continue to the next item in a loop, although because I'm using the single variety of the input upload control, then there's only going to be one item in this list, hopefully anyway. Okay, now let's suppose we've got an item and it matches the kind of content type that we want. Now it's pretty simple to write that item to the disk. But having said that, there is the complication that we need to make sure that the directory is writable on the server, otherwise this is not going to work. But let's kind of arbitrarily select a directory here. Let's say that since I'm running this on my own machine here, on my laptop, I can write to any directory I like, really. And I guess I'll go to somewhere like, well, let's just right click this project directory here and go to properties, and so that's where my project actually is. And as I say, I would not recommend writing to your project directory, because then the results are going to be pretty peculiar, to say the least. But if I go one up here, I could create a directory called something like, let's say upload. I could call the directory upload, and we'll go into there. So it's empty at the moment because I just created it. And let's create a file, and this is going to be a file object that represents the actual directory. So let's say upload dir equals, and I want to create a unique file name for every image that's uploaded here. And there's lots of things you could do here, but I'll say equals file dot create temp file. And that doesn't actually create a file, but it gets you a file name. And I'll use the version of the constructor that takes a prefix, suffix, and most importantly, a file directory. So for the prefix, let's just have image, and for the suffix, let's add .png, and for the file directory, well, let's use the one that I just created. So between double quotes here, this is my project directory, but in the Servlets 2 folder. In fact, I should just copy this path here, it's easier. Let's give it the directory that I just created, paste this in here, and this must be accessible on your server. And because this is Windows, I've got backslashes in this file name, so I could either change them to forward slashes, or I just need to escape the backslashes with another backslash like this. Otherwise it'll think that these backslashes and the letter after represent some kind of special control sequence, which they don't. And I've got an exception. Oh no, I've got an error here, which oh yeah, I think the last argument here is actually a file, so I need to say new file and supply that directory to it. Okay, so this whole line here is actually, this is no longer the upload dir. I'm getting a bit confused. So the upload dir is this bit here. This is the upload dir directory, and we can use the upload directory to create a temporary file. So I supply upload dir to the last argument of create temp file, and by create temporary file I just mean create a temporary file name. So let's say file equals file.create temp file. So you specify the upload directory and then use file.create temp file with a prefix, suffix, and the upload directory here, and that will give you a unique file name within the directory that you specified. And that's the whole object of what I wanted to do there. Okay, and now finally the last bit is mercifully simple, because all I've got to do is say item, and since I used my disk file item factory, I can say item dot write, and not wait, write, and supply it with the file name there. Well, it's actually with the file object, but all that is really is just a path of where to save the file, and that will save the file in that directory. And that throws a exception, so I'm just going to say down here catch exception X. And now this is the kind of message that the user should probably never see, but we'll just say here, for kind of to get this working, I'll just output can't save file. And you should never do this in like a real application, but here I'm just going to say file.get absolute path, let's say, so that we can see what file we failed to save. So actually my file object there is not accessible. So let's just take this out here, and in fact let's not do this, it's too much trouble. Let's just say can't save file. And finally I think we're there. I think we've got some code that should actually work. So let's run this, and I'm going to run my upload.jsp, and my project's already compiled and now it's running. And let's browse, and let's just select something arbitrary for start, like any old file here, like this text file. Start upload, and it's going to say only PNG format images are supported, which is good. Let's go back again and browse for a PNG image, and here's a photo of me, and I'm going to click start upload. And oh yeah, I forgot to output a kind of success message, which we really should have had. I should have said something like here, file saved, and here you could forward to another page. And if you're getting the uploader to upload a photo or something like that, then you could then display it, providing again the directory where you're writing your file is also accessible from the internet, which is, this is a lot of ifs. But here's my file saved in my upload directory successfully, and if I look on that, it's an image of me looking rather worn out, but there we go. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. Quite a lot of stuff, and it's a very rough and ready demo, but this at least is the kind of basics of allowing your user to upload files. So I won't say join me again next time, because this might be the last video in this course, but if you've got more stuff you want me to cover, then feel free to suggest it, and I can't make any promises, but I might well cover it in future. And on udemy.com, udemy.com at the moment, I've also got tutorials on Android programming and on Java Swing, desktop and applet programming, so check those out. And until next time, happy coding.